Picture a traditional bank heist. You have the getaway driver, the safe cracker, the mastermind, and the muscle. Now, imagine that instead of a few masked robbers in a van, the crew consists of two heavily armed nation-states. One is fighting a grinding ground war and desperately needs artillery. The other is a heavily sanctioned, isolated regime desperate for cash to fund its nuclear ambitions. When these two meet in the digital underworld, the rules of global security completely change. We are looking at a new, highly dangerous alliance in cyberspace, one that merges destructive military strategy with billion-dollar crypto theft.
It is a terrifying evolution. We are no longer just talking about isolated hackers in basements or rogue splinter groups. This is a pragmatic, opportunistic merger between Russia and North Korea. For years, the cybersecurity world tracked North Korea's cyber units, specifically the Lazarus Group, as a relentless, billion-dollar crypto theft machine. They were the smash-and-grab experts of the internet. But what happens when the street-level smash-and-grab expert is suddenly handed the keys to a sophisticated, state-backed safe house? That is the reality we are facing right now. It is a direct digital extension of the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Treaty they signed in June 2024.
That treaty really was the catalyst, wasn't it? On paper, the diplomatic language talks about cooperation in science, technology, artificial intelligence, and information security. But anyone reading between the lines in the intelligence community knows that is essentially a glaring green light for cyber alignment. It is fascinating and deeply unsettling how a physical war in Ukraine became the ultimate driver for a digital alliance. Russia needed millions of artillery shells and troops to sustain its front lines, which North Korea happily supplied. In return, Moscow did not just offer food, fuel, and military tech like satellites and jets. They offered a permissive, protected environment for North Korean hackers to operate.
It is the ultimate marriage of convenience, driven entirely by mutual desperation and shared adversaries. Cyber operations fit perfectly into this dynamic because they are incredibly low cost but offer a massive asymmetric yield. For Pyongyang, stealing $1 billion a year in cryptocurrency is not just a side hustle. It is a vital economic lifeline that keeps the regime afloat and directly funds its weapons of mass destruction programs. For Moscow, hosting these hackers provides absolute plausible deniability. Russia can look the other way, while North Korean operatives use Russian digital infrastructure to launch attacks, launder stolen funds, and disrupt Western targets. It is a symbiotic relationship where both sides get exactly what they need without triggering a full-scale conventional military retaliation.
Let's talk about the hard proof, because for a while, this felt like theoretical speculation. Analysts knew they were friendly, but finding the digital fingerprints is another story. Then we got what researchers called the smoking server. In July 2025, analysts at Gen Digital identified a command and control IP address linked to a Russian state-aligned group known as Gamma, which is deeply tied to Russian intelligence activities against Ukraine. Just 4 days later, that exact same server was hosting obfuscated malware from North Korea's Lazarus Group. How does something like that actually happen in practice? It cannot possibly be a random coincidence on the vast internet.
Definitely not a coincidence. Think of a command and control server like a digital safe house used by spies. If a known Russian intelligence operative walks out of that safe house on a Monday, and a notorious North Korean state hacker walks into the exact same building on a Friday, you know they are sharing the keys. This was a monumental discovery because it was the first undeniable case of Russian and North Korean cyber collaboration in the wild. The identical server layout and the rapid reuse of the infrastructure suggest they are either sharing the architecture outright or sequentially handing over control of compromised systems. This allows them to pool their resources for crypto theft, corporate espionage, or even laying the groundwork for reconnaissance on critical infrastructure.
Sharing the keys to the safe house is a perfect way to conceptualize it, and the collaboration does not stop at just sharing servers. We are seeing North Korean groups like Moonstone Sleet, becoming active affiliates of Russian ransomware-as-a-service operations, specifically Chilin and Medusa. For anyone unfamiliar, ransomware-as-a-service is basically a dark web franchise model. The Russian developers build the highly sophisticated malware, and the North Korean affiliates use it to infect targets, and then they split the ransom profits. North Korea jumping into the Russian ransomware ecosystem feels like a massive escalation in how state-sponsored cybercrime operates.
It is a massive escalation, and the real-world impact is already being felt. By late 2025, there was a sharp, undeniable surge in ransomware attacks hitting South Korea, pushing it to the very top of the global target list. North Korean groups are leveraging these sophisticated Russian tools to paralyze hospitals, financial services, and logistics hubs. North Korea brings a ruthless agility, high-volume operational tempo, and incredible social engineering skills. Meanwhile, Russia provides the advanced criminal ecosystem to launder the money, gain initial access, and distribute the malware. It is a chilling blend of state-sponsored espionage and pure, profit-driven criminality. Russia gets indirect revenue and plausible deniability, while North Korea gets better tools.
That blending of statecraft and criminality really forces us to ask a profound question about the nature of modern warfare. Historically, wars were fought over territory, ideology, or tangible resources. But here, we have a geopolitical alliance that operates exactly like a global crime syndicate. When a nation-state uses ransomware to extort a civilian healthcare system just to fund a nuclear missile program, the line between an act of war and organized crime completely dissolves. Does this mean our traditional understanding of geopolitical deterrence is entirely obsolete?
That is perhaps the defining philosophical and strategic question of this new era. Traditional deterrence relies on clear attribution and proportionate, immediate consequences. If a country drops a physical bomb on a power plant, the source is obvious, the casualty count is clear, and the diplomatic or military retaliation is swift. But in the cyber domain, attribution is notoriously slow and incredibly complex. When a hospital's network goes dark, is it a Russian intelligence operation? Is it a North Korean crypto heist? Or is it a hybrid of both? By the time investigators untangle the code and map the servers, the money is gone through a cryptocurrency mixer, and the damage is done. This partnership exploits that exact gray zone. Russia gets to disrupt Western societies without committing its elite military units, and North Korea gets to operate under the protective shadow of a global superpower.
And that protective shadow extends deeply into human resources as well. We know North Korea has thousands of IT workers deployed globally, often hiding their identities, faking their locations, and funneling their tech salaries back to the regime. With Russia now acting as a tacit safe haven, these remote workers have even more breathing room to infiltrate corporate networks under the guise of legitimate employment. It makes you wonder how private companies can even defend against this. You might think you are hiring a brilliant freelance coder for your startup, but you could actually be granting administrative network access to a state-sponsored operative working out of a Russian tech hub.
The vetting process for remote talent has to completely transform, because the threat vector has fundamentally shifted from outside the firewall to inside the payroll. And looking ahead through early 2026, the intelligence community, including the latest threat assessments, is warning that this is just the beginning phase. Right now, the cooperation might seem opportunistic, perhaps a bit patchy in the open source data, but the trajectory is undeniably clear. The real nightmare scenario is joint malware development and the sharing of zero-day exploits. Imagine North Korea's Lazarus Group launching a massive, incredibly noisy financial heist to distract incident responders, while a Russian group quietly slips through the back door to deploy a destructive wiper malware on a national energy grid. The combined threat is exponentially greater than what either country could achieve alone.
It is the ultimate asymmetric advantage. It feels like we are watching the real-time formation of a digital axis of convenience. They might not share a deep historical ideological bond like traditional alliances, but their shared animosity toward the West and their perfectly complementary needs make them incredibly dangerous. If North Korea brings the financial predation and the sheer willingness to take massive risks, and Russia brings the destructive hybrid warfare playbook and the advanced infrastructure, the defenders are essentially fighting a two-front war on a single network. The implications for critical infrastructure are just staggering.
Precisely. And this forces allied nations to completely rethink their entire defensive posture. You cannot fight a networked, highly agile hybrid threat with isolated, fragmented, and bureaucratic responses. The intelligence sharing between allied nations has to become as seamless and rapid as the infrastructure sharing between Moscow and Pyongyang. We have to aggressively disrupt the ransomware ecosystems at their root, track the cryptocurrency mixers in real time, and hunt down these shared command and control servers before they are fully weaponized. The shadows are merging rapidly, and the window for defenders to get ahead of this combined threat is closing faster than anyone anticipated.
It really leaves you with a chilling thought to ponder. As these regimes continue to pool their digital arsenals, the battleground is no longer confined to muddy trenches, contested airspace, or physical borders. The front line is quietly sitting in our financial systems, our healthcare networks, and the critical infrastructure that keeps our cities running. If a few lines of shared code can destabilize a nation's economy or turn off the lights in a major metropolis, we have to ask ourselves, are we truly prepared for a world where the most devastating weapons are entirely invisible and the adversaries are united not by a flag, but by a shared server? The digital axis is real, it is evolving, and it is quietly rewriting the rules of global conflict. Stay vigilant, harden your perimeters, and always keep your eyes open.